Okay, so I'll call this meeting of the FFT committee to order. Do we have any public comment on the agenda? Seeing none, I will turn it over to Mr. Yad and Mr. Lynn.
Thank you. We'll just start briefly with the PWHS renovation project punch list.
Actually, before we do that, we have item 3, which is, if you flip it back over to your, so it's your computer control now. No, that's fine. The new business, the one agenda item of new business is our enrollment increase.
Sorry.
That's quite all right. Mrs. Epstein actually asked a question about CES. So my update is going to be just talking points right now. We'll come back in October and November with a more definitive plan. You saw in the enrollment that I projected earlier that CES has 801 students present, with a few pending registrations. So we had about...
She's just walking in, so maybe get her attention that we're answering her
Chris,
question.
we're talking about CES. Thank you. So we're sitting at 790 to 800 kids this year. We also know that the current 3rd grade is approximately the same size as the incoming 4th grade. So right now, if this was next year and we got no more kids, we'd be fine. We know we'll have a few kids. The current 2nd grade, however, is 470. So they're coming through and they're our biggest class in the district right now. So they could, by the time they're in 4th and 5th grade, we're looking at 500 kids. So we have Terry, Joe, and I, and Rose Rock, the principal, spent the summer of many things that we did, talking about CES. What our immediate need is, we're using all of the classrooms. Our special ed teachers have rooms, we have technology rooms, we have our robotics room. So we're doing what we should do, using these buildings to its full capacity. And we talked about this with Gottschall Kane. We have 2, and it was actually Terry and Joe showed it to me. We have 4 science labs on the 2nd and 3rd floor of this building. They really are large enough because they also have a center room, sort of a meeting area. They are large enough to convert into 3 classrooms. So that's one of the projects. Our short-term goals are to create 4 additional rooms next year without touching the DO and just using space we currently have. So in the budget, when we talk about capital projects for the summer of 2019, one would be to take those 2 science rooms on the 2nd and 3rd floor and make that into 6 classrooms. So that will give us a net 2 classrooms. The other thing to do is once the West Gym, which is practically finished, is complete and we move our athletics there, not that we still won't use this gym sometimes, but we have downstairs, we have a spacious set of locker rooms and some other utility rooms down there, which easily can be converted to 2 or 3 rooms. We think it'd be great to move art. Music is already downstairs on the other side. Move the art rooms down here. Maybe another support classroom. It's easy access for the kids, not far from the cafeteria. The space is already finished. We have fixtures in there. And so that's our other smaller project for next summer. So this coming November, December, if we move the FMT and finance, we're going to see those recommendations for next school year as part of capital projects. The second part of the plan for CES is to prepare for the 2nd grade, which is that 470 in the 1st grade and kindergarten, which we think will be closer to that size. That's where we need to have KCBA come in and work with us and specifically take up, I'm going to backtrack, I apologize. The other area that we can work on next summer is our cafeteria. So if you go in the cafeteria, we should do a tour one night since we can come here a couple times a month. If you look, there's a ton of drywall and temporary walls, and we looked at the amount of space, and we can increase by about 15%. We could probably fit. There's storage in there. There's some of the MELC's things in there. We have ideas of where to put that. Take that out, square that off, which is right behind us, and we can get at least 8 to 10 more cafeteria tables in there. The kitchen is plenty big. We have 2 serving lines. Rose was elated as we walked through and talked about this. And these are smaller projects that we really think we can do in turn. Then moving on for 2 years down the road, when we have larger classes coming in, we need to then have a serious conversation about at least half of the DO. And I know this is a great area, but we have one space upstairs. The old wrestling room, locker rooms are up there. I would rather put classrooms here next to the cafeteria, great proximity for the principals. move the principals down here possibly, build some more classrooms down here, and take our existing, remember when I first got here, we were talking about being moving the DO to the middle school, move the DO off campus. Based on what I think we need, and working with KCBA and then eventually Decision Insight, take half the DO and move us upstairs to the old wrestling room. You already have water up there, you have the rooms. It's a great space. Not a great space right now. But the reason I wouldn't put kids up there is right now there's no access going across because of the big foyer in between the two. So move us up there and give the kids access to closer to the cafeteria and closer to the theaters. And that's we're talking in the summer of 2020. That's a little more, obviously, a more detailed project. So I just want to get it on the board's radar, so it's out there. I do know, once we get that second and first grade class that are coming through in a few years, we're going to need that capacity. We have a great building here, and so, we think that's a good plan for us, and we'll have detailed pricing and everything as we move forward, so the board can have a good plan for it. Questions on that? Very good.
Okay. Just to start with the PWH renovation project punch list, some of the items that were on the list, what we worked on doing was actually providing pictures of them completed. So this was the list we were working off of. If everyone just wants to take a second to review that, and then we'll kind of review the work that was done, and we'll show you pictures of the final product completed. So I'm just going to go out front, and we'll go to the handrail. I know we can at least share a laugh because it was finally done, frustrating as it was. It took forever, but I think the final product looks good, and you can tell that it did light up the stairway and the ramp and everything kind of got lit up really well. So on the left, you're seeing a picture at night, and on the right-hand side, you're seeing a picture during the day. So that would be the handrail. Again, this is the punch list for the CITD area. So that was the bridge, the connecting bridge. It had to get new ceiling, new lights, new windows, and then the steel that holds it up was to be painted. So on the left-hand side, you're actually looking at the bridge inside from where the children cross over, and on the right-hand side, you're seeing the windows from the inside and the outside. Bottom lower right is the windows that are actually inside the CITD area. Again, I think Felix and I spoke briefly about landscaping. You can see that they did complete the rain garden and the landscaping around the new gym. Again, there's some interesting battles with the architects and everyone in the township trying to figure out exactly what we wanted to get that, up to code. So everything's up to snuff. Again, the township comes in and basically gives us their blessing on all that work. So they're there as we're finishing up. So the landscaping is done and approved by the township. This is again just another picture of the landscaping on the side of the building that they were getting responsible for were to have to us by the end of the summer. These were the classrooms. If you recall, we talked about the contractors were actually using these classrooms as their offices. So instead of actually putting trailers on site and saving parking spots for our students during the school year, we stuck them inside classrooms so that we could maintain more of our parking lot area. So this is the classrooms that were cleaned up and how they look when we put the furniture back in, and the connecting corridor on the right-hand side, which is new, that gets you to the gym. And this is just another look inside one of the classrooms, but that was completed. That used to be where the contractors were. The other punch list item was connecting all the corridors to the new gym. So when you go down the hallway from the library, connecting that corridor in front of the science wing to the new gym, and then in the rear of the building, what we used to call the 30s hallway, connecting that, and then in the dead center, you have the connecting hallway from the locker rooms into the gym. Again, we talked about signage, so there's a couple pictures I'm just going to show you. You can see there's the gym and the Plymouth White Marsh High School sign above, and the new gym lobby, the concession stand sign that was put up there. There was signage for the plaques in the main lobby that I think everyone may have seen when Dr. Christian threw the barbecue for the support services staff. And this is signage that's now in the hallway to kind of tell you what classrooms are where, and so you can get some directional way signage. This was the pool deck, and I think we talked about the ponding. So if you look, we took it out on the left, and look on the left and on the right in front of the cone, there's actually 2 drains that we installed in there. Terry and I did flood the pool deck, so we basically break out a garden hose and flood it to make sure we're seeing where the water's going. The drains are working really well. We think it's taking 90% of the water is going away with the drains. So we know we spoke before. We have we're working up our cost of what it cost us to do this, and we will work with SB Conrad KO to make sure that we are reimbursed our time and money.
Actually, the punch list itself has not been updated yet. It still shows 1 drain being installed. That is complete. That was completed Friday afternoon. That's why the punch list was not updated yet. But that is complete now, 100%.
There was some concrete that needed to be replaced out front. I think at the last meeting I reported that they did it, and there was one patch that they had to get done because they hit a pipe underneath that did some lighting. So that is actually in between the brick pavers. That's the one patch that they had to complete. So they're done out front. This was just, again, them just getting into the west locker room to show you that the locker rooms were completed. I don't know who actually walked through. I know that, again, some people have seen the locker rooms. So again, everything's completed and ready to go for RJ and Jason to decide, who's going to utilize what in the locker room. And this was the gym where the floor was completely installed. Obviously, we still have more work to do with sanding and painting our lines and getting our bleachers in, but this is just a brief look of what it looked like when the wood was all down. And this was an update on the bleachers that actually shows you on the top left, that's all the flooring and the metal they have to put in before the seats go on. And then in the bottom left, you're looking at the bleachers that will go in the auxiliary gym. And on the right-hand side, they're the bleachers that actually face the bus lane.
So how far are you out from floor completion and bleacher completion?
For completion?
Yeah.
We have a date of actually having gym class in the gym on September 17th and actually being able to play our sports team, like our girls volleyball team, playing in there on September 24th. Dr. Christian and GKO and us, we all met with them and we locked them down to a date.
Great.
So, this was the, we talked, I want to say several meetings ago about installing an ADA button. So we were looking at the ADA button in the front door for PWHS, and you're seeing what you have on the outside. You have the button on the left-hand side there, and then on the right you have the button on the inside on the left. And the same thing is down at the new gym. Just some summer work. Again, when we did the bridge and they had to paint outside, we thought it was good to show that the retaining wall that you can see under the bridge, we had to pressure wash and paint that whole wall. We actually changed the color to actually match the pool color, so we're standing out on Germantown Pike. It didn't look like there was 2 different colors. So those little subtle things that we're just looking at internally, we did with our in-house staff. The fencing project, I think, is left over from, I think we talked about this before, but this was down Colonial Drive.
Looks great.
You saw that? And now we're going to Terry just to speak briefly about the storm drain issue in Germantown Pike. I think we did brief you on the last meeting, but Terry will give you some more detail.
Actually, yeah, I wish I had better news for you. PennDOT has still not done the work yet. We've been waiting for about a month now. They're to come in and actually install 2 36-inch diameter pipes underneath the Germantown Pike. And that will carry the stormwater, which is in the lower left corner. This is actually the pipes that feed into this corner here. This is actually a storm break underneath a slab of concrete. That's all the stormwater that comes off of our property. It then gets pushed underneath Germantown Pike over onto the golf course. So that's what PennDOT has to do yet. We cannot start our work until PennDOT is completed, because once they do the new work, or once we do the new work, we're a little worried that PennDOT will come in with their track hose and dig up and damage our work. So
Is that being delayed at all by the issue on Butler Pike? No.
Yeah, they actually have tried every like Friday night and Saturday night for the last couple of weeks. It's been raining, so that's what's called the mall. That's the corner itself of Germantown Pike and Colonial Drive. You can see the ponding of the water. We're considering putting in a storm drain, but actually we talked to our contractor who thinks we're better off probably raising the pavement. So we're going to add some pavement on top of that to create a new swale to get the water to push off to either side rather than putting the storm drain.
Push off to the side and push across Germantown Pike.
No, actually they'll push it down Germantown Pike.
You would think we would have some influence with PennDOT.
And that's just the corner, that's actually, this entire slab where this cap is actually the lid of the entire box itself. This is all cracked, that will be replaced as well, the whole corner will be replaced once that's complete. But again, the pipes, the 236, that's the pipes, by the way, they across the street. That actually is, it's caving in, actually, that's protected.
Protect the icy car.
And actually, if you look, it's not on the picture, but over on the shoulder of the road, there's a couple different cones that are there. That has actually already collapsed, so it's getting pretty bad. They have to finish it pretty quick. So, but anyway, this will be completed as soon as PennDOT does their work, or we'll take care of ours. Then we'll do the corner, and it'll be.
So that drawing, that engineering drawing that was a few slides back, is that what the new intersection is going to look like?
No, this is actually a drawing from 1989. I was just showing the amount of pipes that come in there. It's about 6 or 700 pipes. Correct.
Okay.
So,
Terry, can I just tell you something that you might not be aware of that relates to Mrs. question? On White Marsh Township's website, it talks about the Germantown pipe thing, and it says it's postponed indefinitely because of the bubble pipe thing. It said because of the traffic. So if you go onto the White Marsh Township website, it says that there's no plans for that Germantown pipe thing until bubble is in traffic.
actually, I've been dealing directly with PennDOT. And,
I'm just telling you.
all right, I'll check with Whitemarsh as well. Great, thank you.
Okay, so again, I'll just give you a brief update. I think everyone remembers we had Foundation Day last year. Denise Marks sponsored the event. She's working on it again this year. Just as a brief update, I think we spoke, she's having an obstacle race. She's doing some pretty nice things to try and bolster the event. So again, we have meetings set up with Jason McConney and RJ Bretz to kind of review to make sure we're not getting in the way of our student activities. And we did make sure we didn't plan it on the same night as Cavalcade this year. So there's a plus. But again, things are moving along smoothly and we're excited. And we realize living and learning, and I think we had the event maybe a little too long last year. So I believe she made it, I'm gonna say it's 12 to 4. She changed the hours. We were pretty much like 9 to 3:30, actually it was a long day. So.
That's September 29th.
September 29th, yes. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is actually great news. We were awarded a grant from the PDE with what they call the School Breakfast Program, mini grant award. And it's for $3,000 for setting up breakfast, actually they call it a second chance breakfast for the students down at Pontotoc Elementary. What they're finding is that a lot of these students are not hungry first thing in the morning. Yet by 9 o'clock or so, they're hungry, so now we're going to feed them at 9 o'clock rather than, and I say 9, it'll be around 9 o'clock. $3,000 for the grant. We're going to start that soon. Lori finds these grants on how she does it. She does a wonderful job with this. She's going to work directly with the team as possible. And the next item on the agenda is just an update on the CMS renovation project status report. This was information given to us from KCBA. They're actually gave us some milestones, design phase that we're obviously continually working on. They started in April. They feel that they're going to be ready to go out for bid next March or about March or April of next year, the spring. The construction itself of the new middle school will start in June. I think that might be a little bit aggressive. That'd be great if that happens. I don't know if we'll want to start in June, but the key is to get out the bid as quickly as possible, and hopefully we'll get some good numbers Demolition of the existing building and site reconfiguration is scheduled for June 2021 and February 2022. But again, we obviously got to get at the bid first. They've been having ongoing meetings with the administrative team at the middle school. They've had weekly meetings with the leadership team to discuss the project, the design team. They've had some of the stakeholders, which are a lot of the teachers and department heads, who've been meeting directly with the contracts, or with the architects to design the new building. And it's been going actually very well. They have not gone in front of the planning commission yet, or zoning hearing boards, but that will be scheduled very shortly, as soon as they have the drawings and get enough condition to get approval on those. They're going to come, and they're going to meet with us on October 1st. They will have actually, we're not going to have them here every month, but October 1st will be the next update. And I believe they'll have the building in such a shape to be able to show us drawings and give us a pretty good budget for that, for the project. The end user meetings will continue out through the winter. Board actions, what they were looking for on November 17th. We're going to advertise for the Act 34 hearing, which will take place in December. Location of the Act 34 hearing will probably be at the middle school or in this one. So keep you updated on that as well. That just explains what an Act 34 hearing is. It deals with the amount of money that we're spending at that approval, letting the public know what we're spending the money on. They have a consensus on that as well. This is the overview. I'm sure you've seen this pretty much. The overview of the existing site. And essentially, we've kind of expedited it to the completion. You can see where the school was and where the new school is going to be. Where the old school was located, obviously, is going to be athletic fields, increased parking. You've seen these quite a few times. But what you haven't seen is the profiles of the building. I think we've talked with you a number of times about the way the contour of the land goes. They're actually utilizing the land to its best use, where they've got 3 stories on the one end of the building, down to 2 stories on the other, and it actually contours very nicely into the site. This is a profile of what the front entrance is going to look like. And then these are some of the interior lobby, library. There's going to be a lot of glass that want to use. It's a 2-story, what's the library?
It's the library, and we're looking at they call it the main commons.
Yeah.
You can just take a look at what that would look like from the upper floor. Obviously, they're showing some people there, but there will be glass in front of them.
I was going to say, it's dangerous.
Pretty sure it's not.
Geronimo.
We pay our bill, there's glass in front of them. And then they're just showing the collaboration stairs. I think they spoke about all these things last week, and how they actually have the drawings are further along. So they wanted to share that with you. Again, that's just another view of those collaboration stairs that are going on in the main common area. This is the courtyard they spoke of. And you can see the grass, or I'll call it turf there, if you recall. I said where everyone's learning about the grass there, so that'll be a turf area. And then what they're calling a tech ed patio area.
Would you go back to the slide that had some of those key dates on it? That had the October. So October 1 will be a critical time for the board because they'll have more detail done on the proposed building. It's at that point too, when we at finance and facilities, the board needs to talk about the capital project so that we have direction. Because really, from then from October through getting bid documents there in the spring is where we can get alternates in and have all those discussions. And we need to have those upfront discussions about what the cost of new construction is, because it's a volatile market right now. Some of the other things that we don't control, right, like tariffs and things like that. So we need to have all those discussions, and then once the board sets that limit, that cap, then we go back, work with the architects, we'll have a construction management firm in place by then, and we work with everybody to then design the building. And you know what, we may have to come back in December and January and have some hard conversations, right? Do we need that much glass? Do we need a stair tower? Where is the mechanical room? What efficiencies are there through value engineering, all those things, so that we can meet the budget. We still want a wonderful building, but we also have a budget to keep.
I wanted to ask, are there any schools where we could go to observe some of these big open spaces and talk to staff about, how they feel about them, how they're utilized?
That's a great question, Mrs. Northcutt. In fact, one of the buildings, project up in the Allentown area where they had a building that they had about 26 to 30 acres, and they had an older middle school and decided to build new right behind it, about 210,000 square feet. So that's in the Northampton School District, so we should go visit Northampton, and we can put together, I'm sure there's a few others out there.
I think that's a great point. And we did that with the high school cafeteria. We went and looked at a cafeteria with the, what's it called? Scatter serve, and to see it in action. Because a lot of that looks really cool and exciting. I think it'd be nice to see if it's actually used and make sure that we're getting our money's worth. Great idea.
Okay, any other questions from CMS?
Yeah.
All right. Next item on the agenda, construction management for CMS project. I'm sure you're aware we put out an RFP back on June 24th. We invited several different construction management firms throughout the Southeastern area to get proposals on the construction management services for the Colonial Middle School project. We did receive 3 proposals from 3 top-notch firms in the area. That was on July 12th. Since then, we also went back out to each of the firms and asked them to take a look at their numbers. We actually sent them a copy of the RCP that we just adopted back in August. And they took, reconsidered their prices based upon the review of that RCP. So they did give us revised prices. We had a question and answer session with them last Thursday.
Yeah.
Which they all, again, they're all very good firms.
So I'll give you my opinion, and then I would like the board members who attended the interviews to certainly chime in. And then Dave, Terry, and I talked. We think we had 3 reputable firms. We had solid recommendations on all 3, but we had some recommendations that were better than others from our colleagues. We had, in my opinion, there was one firm that had a clear and detailed plan from design to construction to completion. And they came in well prepared to discuss all facets of our project. They had a multitude of handouts. They had a plan for the 2.5 years that they would be working with the district on the project, and that was Dewey Engineering. They answered every question that I had, I thought, in detailed fashion. And it's not to say that the other firms are not quality firms. It's a good problem to have. And I talked with Terry and Joe, and we concurred. From a financial standpoint, Dewey and Reynolds, their proposals are very close in price, and then Fidavia is lower by over $300,000. And so I certainly take our financial responsibilities very seriously. But when we're looking at a project that is going to be $75 million, and I saw the grants that they've gotten in some of the other schools, and I saw the level of detail that they provided and ideas they have for value engineering, I think there's the potential there to recoup that money through the project. So I don't make this recommendation lightly. I appreciate each of their efforts, but the 3 of us are on the same page in the administrative recommendation. Terry or Dave, would you like to comment?
I've worked with 2 of the 3 firms, and Fidavia being one and Dewey being the other, both quality firms. I know Reynolds has a great reputation. They all interviewed very well, but I do believe that Dewey by far set themselves apart with their presentation, the team they brought in, and their preparedness for that interview. And I believe that they did a quality job for us at Boardtown. And I would imagine they would do anything less here at Colonial. So I support the recommendation for doing also.
I had the opportunity to talk with one of the gentlemen from Dewey yesterday, and I asked some questions that I had some concerns about. And the answers that I got were terrific. I mean, nothing but absolute upfront honesty. and I was a little concerned, but until I heard that, so I'd like to.
The folks who were in person or on the phones, anybody want to? I mean, I participated by phone. Again, I thought all the presentations were, very good. The proposals were detailed, but I would agree with Dr. Christian and the team that the level of process that Dewey seemed to have prepared for handling all the different questions that we asked, and they didn't know what questions we were asking walking in the door, was really impressive. And so I concur with your recommendation, and I think it's important. We've seen what happens when we don't have a good handle on planning and budgeting and identifying all those issues, and so having a really strong firm to make sure that we're spending these tax dollars as responsibly and effectively as possible is so important.
I participated by phone as well, and I liked all the firms. I thought they all did a fantastic job, and really, even brought up stuff that I clearly hadn't thought about before in terms of value engineering in ways that we could save money. But I agree with the recommendations that's been made. I thought. I certainly didn't have, any firm that I was particularly leaning towards going into it, and was open to sort of all of them. And I just felt that Dewey really came in with a game plan, but also, recognized that we. That ultimately they're answering to us, and they want to save us money, they want to work with us. But I just felt like they really had some great ideas and had thought things through and developed some ideas that they could really hit the ground running with. I also just thought they just seemed better prepared to answer the questions that we asked. And again, they didn't know them in advance. Now, I also recognize, as Dr. Christian said, that they and Reynolds were more expensive. But I think this is an area where, we're talking about a huge project, and we really, spending a little bit more now to save potentially millions of dollars down the line based on the recommendations and maybe efficiencies, et cetera, cost savings they could achieve really, makes a lot of sense to me.
I'd like to add too that I was able to attend the interviews, and I think as a district we're very fortunate to get 3 outstanding firms submit a proposal. They did come with impressive resumes and teams, but at the interviews and through the presentations, I think Dewey came with a strong playbook and a game plan for our project. I think they really went into great detail with the design and planning, and really customized their approach to our project. And I think that they're going to provide great value to our district. So I feel confident that they're a firm that would be best fit for our district.
And I was not able to attend, I'm sorry to say, but I did speak with Dr. Christian, and I would just like to say, for the record, it's nice to see unanimity of opinion.
I've read, I was not at the meeting, but I've read the materials that were submitted. And I wanted to ask, so Dewey talked about on 5 of recent projects in the written materials, they were able to get these $2 million ACE grants for LEED, LED gold. And so what is that?
LEED is energy efficiency.
Yeah.
Turn on your mic. Turn your mic on.
In layman's terms, it's creating an energy efficient building, and LEED certified is a certification that the building has high energy efficiency. So there's grants out there that help with the offset the cost of LEED certification.
But did they talk about what specifically they did to make the building more energy efficient? How would they use that $2 million? They did it, they got these grants that said for 5 buildings, 5 of their projects.
They didn't go into that kind of detail in the interview. We can find out, absolutely, get that information for you.
And then the other question I had was, so the only one that I saw who responded to the question about how would you implement the school district's responsible contractor policy through the construction project was Dewey. They talked about that they have worked with an RCP on 3 projects. This was in the written material. So did either of the other 2 firms talk about that?
In fact, Reynolds said yes, they had RCO experience, RCP experience, and actually morphed into a PLA project than what they referred to. So, yes, Reynolds did apply to, I guess,
I think all three firms,
Fidavius and experience with RCPs.
but all 3 firms expressed an open, said they would be willing to work with the district's policy. Dewey had a real game plan, though, I felt, and
All 3
really
had
had.
work with the district's policies.
So was there any questions about the apprenticeship, a Class A apprenticeship program and how that was going to be assessed in these questionnaires that they talked about creating for the bid process?
Yeah, a little detail.
Well, yeah, so in terms of apprenticeship, I'd have to say they didn't focus on that. What Dewey talk about is their approach to implementing RCP. Actually, Reynolds did too. But Dewey had a very extensive game plan on educating contractors, educating the market, going out there and getting buy-in from everybody well in advance so that there's no surprises. All have the same expectation when it comes to bidding process.
Was there anything, because I read through the listing of all the health and safety and all the elements for different parts of the contracting, was there anything that was new in terms of what would be expected in the bid process?
The pre-certification for in the RCP, which means we have to pre-certify every single contractor prior to the bid. So conversely to that, we usually, in the past, we would always certify them after the bid to make sure they're qualified to do the work. But now they have to be pre-certified to be able to bid on the projects. We did explain that, their process for that. It's time consuming, but
Dewey went into great length about discussing how to develop increased competition on the bids too, in a competitive market. And they had a detailed approach for that, and that was both whether we had an RCP or we did not have one.
And I believe the both CMs commented that they saw no cost increase. And in fact, they had stiff competition, a lot of competition on all the projects that they utilized with this policy. So that was encouraging.
Okay, I was able to go to the meeting. I didn't see Reynolds, but I saw Dewey and Fidavia. And I'm just going to reiterate what everybody else is saying, how Fidavia is not as good of a fit as Dewey. But Dewey said, as far as the RFP and the RCO goes, they want to ensure competition between the best firms. And I think that's a good mindset to have with that.
So do you need?
actually, if I could get back, I'm sorry, I apologize for not having this ready available, but there actually is a document that Dewey handed out at the meeting to what they will do with the RCP before bidding, and what they will do is like 10 steps before and then after bidding. So they have a whole game plan together on how they're handling it.
Yeah, and I think they had that in the online, yeah, because I read through that.
Okay.
So what we need is a recommendation from the FMT committee, and consensus within the committee to go with Dewey. There'll be a formal board vote on September 20th. What we'll do in the interim, if the board is okay with it, is between tomorrow and the 20th, we'll ask Mr. Clark's office to work on developing an agreement with Dewey Construction Management so that it can be signed immediately after the board meeting, pending board approval, and have everything locked in place so that they can get to work with KCBA as soon as possible this month. I think that's critical for our timeline. If it doesn't get approved and we go with somebody else, then we'll just, we'll change it and we'll do the contract with the other firm. But we should take advantage of these 2 weeks because we want to make sure, while Dewey represents the owner and will be our voice at the table, we need to have a very crisp and clean contract with them, outlining what the exact fees are, making sure there's no add-ons in the middle of it or anything at the end. And if there are, and part of that will come, they'll expect us and the board to be decisive in our decisions, so when we make a decision move forward, try to minimize all the change orders. So I'd like to take advantage of this 2-week period we have.
So we have 3 committee members. So Mel, are you on board with?
I absolutely am what we're doing.
Yes, I'm on
And
board
as am
too.
I, so.
Very good.
So is there any public comment on this agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will bring this meeting to a close.